Well, so many of us know the term jab jab, but not many heard the term yay. Yay. You want to know about yay? Well, ask Mr. Hudson George, or you can, if you can, get in touch with Mr. John Duncan. He'll tell you about yay, the mass I knew. Well, Grenada Carnival was always, boy, always colorful and enjoyable. Still is, still is. But one thing I tell you, the days of the big costume bands, those days are gone. Big costume bands. The homegrown talent, they're almost gone. We used to stand and stare in awe as the wonderfully clad masqueraders happily danced on the street. The mind-boggling headpieces and the creative art of the wire benders, well, that always thrilled us. And remember names, and you can add yours. The names like Awe, John Bruno Patterson, Ken Sylvester will always be remembered for their ability to portray historical masks and other masks that brought buccaneers, Zulu warriors from Africa, pirates, and even Julius Caesar back to life. And we must, in this regard, big up my friend Sky Redhead for his creative artwork regarding the costumes that he so skillfully make for the carnival. And you remember George Crony for his contribution to the growth of the steel pan in Grenada and others, many others that you can list. Yes, I can't call all the names, you know them too. So Carnival was a serious affair. We took it very seriously, and it sent people like me searching all over Belmont and Springs. We're looking for sheepskin or bull's horn to play in the various bands, the Viking bands and so on. Well, to my earliest recollection of Carnival was the occasion I stood with my mother and my brothers, little boy I was, a spot near the health center on Melville Street. When you go to town, ask anybody to show you where an old timer, for instance, to show you where the old health center building was. I looked on back then in amazement as the Indians. I don't like the word wild Indians, because you kind of have the connotation there, wild. But they had the Indians with their fancy feathers, and they formed a circle and danced and hopped around. Creative artwork. And I saw the Jab Jab. Why? The Jab Jab with his red tongue, his horn, and the little black box, and the spelling of words. Don't ask a Jab Jab to spell the word country. Especially when children are wrong. Don't ask a Jab Jab to. Jab Jabs were great spellers, you know, boy. I like to hear them spell, I like to hear them spell. And the sang, Hulewi Lambe, Hulewi La, Kijaba Penny, to pay me passage to go back to hell. And I'm hungry. Like, well, some people have a kind of difficulty with this association with hell, because the Jab Jab used to sing that. I used to be there, I heard it. Pay me passage to go back to hell. But the Jab Jab walked around frightening little children. Posies on their heads, chains around the waist, dragging things, the snakes around their necks. The Jab Jab, you know, the solitary Jab Jab, it's because there are some of them just, they wear no band. These days people just darken their clothes or put some black things on the skin and they run around and they call themselves Jab Jab. But we used to have the solitary, those who just walking around. Solitary figures, going for miles, miles on the bacchanal with a little dolly in the black box, asking people to put a change to see what was inside. And when you look inside, sometimes there's a big snake they coil up inside there. And of course, while the Jab Jab did his thing, the shortney, well, when I was a little boy, we call all shortney shanty mill. Shanty mill. That's what we call them. Shanty mill. And the shortney with raising their feet high in the air and the powder and all that stuff, them, and very, very exciting. Very exciting. Well, those were the days of the mud mass. Well, you can't tell children today about mud mass. We were good at that, the making the mud mass. I still can remember shaping the clay or the mud to create a very gruesome face. Well, I would encourage mud mass these days because fellas with guns and all kind of stuff, might use the opportunity to do a lot of bad things, So, but we back then, we had the mud mass. So we used newspapers to plaster onto the mud face before putting the mass to dry in the sun. When the mass was dried, we separated it from the mud, the paper and so on, and painted it. All kind of pieces. So yes, Carnival was and is excitement indeed, great fun. The old mass, well, that's my favorite, the old mass. That's a spectacle. I think nowadays they have the old mass still. Yes, they do have the old mass with the placards where you could make fun of politicians and get away with a lot of stuff, ridicule a lot of public figures. The old mass. I love to read the placards, and it brings a lot of excitement. Many look forward to the old mass, and I do. And it was a platform for the ingenious and the creative mind. Men think the days, of the time back in those days, long before the panty and bra took over. But these days, most what you see is panty and bra, especially what we used to call pretty mass. Pretty mass descended into panty and bra. Now, a few years ago, how many years? I can't remember, boy, you're getting older. I saw my friend Cafe Bull portray a banana tree on a carnage. Creative mind, creative, very creative. And his impressive talent amazed me. I often marveled at the fun the masqueraders were able to poke at the politicians and the other people in society during the Juve celebration. Well, Juve starts since probably June because fellas playing all kind of mass. Time for Carnival now. Every day is Carnival. So I often marveled at the fun, yes, the celebration. And I love the slogans because you know what? Some of the slogans were more into the realm of what we Grenadians call communists. You can't separate communists from Carnival. No, you can't. Carnival always and will always have a touch of what we call communists. So consequently, it was not unusual for someone to play Ivan Wood. Now, Ivan Wood was a big store. No, it wasn't really big, a line. It wasn't big, a small store, clothing store. It's Ivan Wood, the store. So a fella would use the opportunity to play Old Mass and to play Ivan Wood. So you get a big piece of wood and you put it in front of him and he was playing Ivan Wood. Ivan Wood. All one had to do, yes, and he did, was to walk with a piece of wood in front of him, and he played Ivan Wood. What about Jonas Brown? Jonas Brown store? Someone sees the opportunity to play Jonas Brown. Well, Jonas Brown. So he pinned behind, he pinned that wrong. That was an easy mass to play. All a man had to do was to paint Bam Bam Brown. And he played Jonas Brown. The store. That's the store, right? Well, if you wanted to make people laugh, laugh out loud like the Catcher Glad, we had scenes that's how the scenes are disappearing. That's why I wrote a book, We Kinda Talk, to bring back all the scenes as much as I could. Scenes that were part of our Grenadian dictionary, put it that way. Grenadianism. I remember when I used the word Grenadianism years ago on Spice Island Talk Shop. Now a lot of people talk about Grenadianism, but I used that word early, and I tell you how I got that word, Grenadianism. Anybody asks me to explain how I came up with that term, I'll let them know. Yes. Now, check this one out. You want to play the police force? Well, I heard there's talk about changing the name from police force to police service. But everybody used to say the police force. Now, force is a word that we know. We know what force means. We have something called a potty, a poke, a tinsel. So a brave fella will get a tinsel, a poke, and sit down on it. And all he had to do was to go, forcing to mess. And he was playing the police force. You think I tell you about them people, they were real creative. Yeah, the police force, on the posy, balling. But it was never a good idea. I would never encourage them to force. You're playing you want to force, you go see what will happen. Keep forcing, you go know. Now, a bald head man like me, all you take lines, I just draw some lines, get a marker and draw some lines on your head. Good example of the headline news. Creativity again. Headline news. And now, some of the best mass portrayals with the placards and all took place in Guam. Hey, you remember Mr. Blaze, Mr. Howard Blaze? A fella ran with a lighted Masanto torch, we call it flambeau, and he was playing Howard Blaze. Blaze as in fire. Another with a hose. Back in those times, we had something called Watergate. You heard about Nixon and Watergate? Well, the creative mind, the Grenadian creative mind came up with Watergate. So you get a gate and you're spraying water on the gate. Good example of Watergate. A fella put a bowl on his face, a sign that reminded us that there are some people that bowl face. You get a bowl and put it in front of his face. There's some people bowl face. A man with a wheelbarrow filled with grass. He was pushing grass. Another term for weed. Nobody could arrest him for pushing grass because the grass are not weed. He was pushing. And a guy also had a big tire, and marking words on the tire. And you know what he was playing? What he was portraying? McIntyre. McIntyre. Oh boy, we go to the class, We're really good in the class. Yes, we're really good. So Old Mass was geared, still is geared to make people think and laugh, have a laugh at the same time. Now, another thrill was the big mass bands on Market Hill. That was really a spectacle, the big mass bands on Market Hill. Talking about Market Hill, do you know that Market Hill was once decked with cobblestones, river stones, before, and then they painted it, just like Cooper Hill. A lot of places in Grenada, in St. George's area, you see that these cobblestones in the alleys, some of the alleys. Of course, the stones, as I said, originated from the rivers, and then they paved it. Constitution Hill, Market Hill, another name. That's the original name. But that spectacle for revelers, man, on Market Hill coming down there was a wonder to behold. And yes, I remember the big carnival bands on Market Hill. The kaleidoscopic display, man. I can still visualize the spectacularly attired masqueraders as they pranced and swayed in the full embrace of the afternoon sun. Their arrival was always timed, perfectly timed to allow the sun to bring out the magnificent sparkle of satin, shiny beads, and candle floss. The crowds lined the sides of Market Hill and some stood at the bottom, but all anxiously awaited the men, women, and children in the big mass bands. And in them days, nobody had to go to Trinidad and import mass and bring in Grenada. Yes, we are and we were creative people. So they waited, the crowds that is, on the flag wavers of Siena. And they looked on as a huge wooden guillotine on wheels and the band, the French Revolution. I played in that band, but I didn't like they made me play a slave. My brother was a senator. They made me play I never liked that. In fact, I wrote a poem which I put in one of the books. You know, I didn't like the portrait of slave. And then the big band, the fall of the Roman Empire. And I saw the boy, a big chariot on Market Hill. Yeah? Creativity. Yes. And the crowds noted the drunken sailors in the spotless white as they let go to the infectious sound of the steel drums. They witnessed the excitement on the faces of the Zulu warriors from Africa in all their African attire, holding their shields and spears as they frolic on Market Hill. Well, on Carnival Tuesday night, boy, the tempo heated up. The sound of the steel echoed through the St. George's capital. Melville Street and the area around By Right. Who remembers By Right Supermarket? Ram-crammed. You like the words there? Ram-crammed. With men and women in tight embrace. One time I saw a guy, he hooked up a woman, and I get a little dance with her. Where he didn't see her again for the night. Up to now he mad with me, Well, it's Carnival. All that is Carnival. And the people dance. They whined. They kawade. Another word that we use. They kawade as the panmen pounded it in a pan like a devil in rage. And some people chip. We used to have, that was called a chip. It's a slow kind of movement to the beat. Nice beat, You ain't getting wild and frolicking and jumping up like a crazy man or woman. You chip, a nice chip. The chip, a slow, graceful movement with the feet, keeping pace. Perfect harmony with the music. The chip. And as the night wore on, well, pan men, they get tired, and some of them just left the stand. The tired play pan. It's time for them to jump up too. The whole time they're playing pan. So they joined the fun. So a few pan men left the beat. And it was time for all the people to squeeze the remaining juice from the carnival before the carnival curtain folded. Well, carnival curtain open since about June. So people playing mass all the time now. And another poem, Carnival bands on Market Hill. I'll close with this. Down they came in frolic wild. The dancing feet and the colorful display in full view of the blazing sun. Down Market Hill they came. Masqueraders moved in eager prance, apparel aglow like the flamboyant trees that graced Fort George and radiated from the hills in gleam and shine. Down they came in the afternoon heat, the emergence time for the sun's kiss. The kiss. It set satin and sequin ablaze and made the costumes shine. Down they came in carnival bands, Vibrant people in fancy attire, spectacular show, in constant flow, jumping, swaying, hugging. Where Monica gone? Find her. Teresa, watch this all place from me. Moving to the song of ringing steel in the Carnival band on Market Hill. Down they came, the Carnival faces, letting jovial abandonment and excitement. The African band with the Zulu spears and the fancy beads. The Viking band with sheepskin-clad feet and horns. Soldiers at war in full military garb. And sailors ashore in a spotless white. Flag wavers of Siena carrying multicolored flags in the Carnival bands, coming down Market Hill. And Fatty Derrick, who remembers Fatty Derrick, Mr. Derrick Clouden? Fatty Derrick whining, make use of the time and make room for the band. Anthony Wendell, lyrics. Yes, boy. Time change. The only constant is change. But just to recap, for historical purposes, the mass we knew and still know. To some extent, I must say. God bless.